are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday, August 14th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, and I don't have the tip up, but we recently qualified for Super Chats. So if you want to tip or donate to the show, you can hit the money icon in the chat menu, and that will help out the show. It'll highlight your comment, and I will see it, and I will acknowledge it on the show, make it a priority. And again, this makes the show more interactive between me and you guys, the viewers. That's really what it's all about. So make sure to do that if you want to help out the show. We greatly appreciate you, as well as you always tuning into our shows every weekday. So make sure to do that. And if not, we still have the link, gsmcpodcast.net, that you could go to and donate as well. And that is at the bottom of the ticker of the show segment. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about the games from over the weekend, the games that I did not cover, because I did cover, of course, the games on Thursday, but between Friday and Sunday, with me not being on Monday and Tuesday, I didn't get to that. So we'll talk about those games today, talk about some of the performances by the rookie quarterbacks, so we'll get into that. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about a deal that is in place between the Steelers and the 49ers involving Brandon Aiyuk. So we'll get into that. We will also talk about a few other things. We'll talk about Haason Reddick requesting a trade from the Jets, and as well as we'll get into that after we talk about the Vikings and J.J.McCarthy, because J.J.McCarthy is going to be out. He has a torn meniscus, so we're going to get into that. Then we'll talk about Haason Reddick in the fourth part of the show. And then in the final part of the show, I'll do my final wide receiver rankings. We'll talk about the NFC West, which is loaded with wide receivers. Another division that's loaded with wide receivers. So we'll get into that as well. But, yeah, so I hope everybody's doing well. But let's get into the first topic, which is discussing the preseason games from over the weekend. So I mainly wanted to talk about the rookie performances because I know they were very highly anticipated. And I do have Jordan Love up on the graphic here because the Packers also played over the weekend. And Jordan Love had a highlight play to Dontavian Wicks. They hit on a long touchdown. So, that got Packers fans excited. I know that. But we'll kind of go through the games Friday to Sunday. So on Friday, we had the Texans and the Steelers, the Falcons and the Dolphins, and the Eagles and the Ravens. So the Texans actually did play their starters, and the starters did play for the Bears, the Steelers as well, except Russell Wilson didn't play for the Steelers. But yeah, the Texans, their first drive of the game, C.J. Stroud connected with Tank Dell for a 34-yard touchdown. And, Tank Dell, got injured last year, so it's nice to see him out there making plays. So, and they only played on that first drive. But, that was a preview of what you're going to see in the regular season. And, Justin Fields, it wasn't great in his limited playing time. But, the Texans, they ended up winning 20-12 over the Steelers. Then with the Falcons and the Dolphins won 20-13. But Michael Penix Jr. Played in this game, went 9-16, 104 yards. Looked good from what I saw. So, obviously, we know that he's not going to play right away. That's going to be Kirk Cousins. And we'll see, if he plays out that full 4-year contract. But in the limited playing time that we saw, Michael Penix Jr., really didn't look that bad from what I saw. So, but then again, it's only preseason. So, but that was the first action that we saw of him. And then for the Dolphins, Skylar Thompson played and Mike White as well. We didn't really see any of the starters on offense play for the Dolphins. So, but they got the win 20-13. Eagles and the Ravens. So Jake Elliott kicked the game-winning field goal. We got to see Kenny Pickett a little bit. He went 14-22 for 89 yards and a touchdown. And he connected with Will Shipley for a 7-yard touchdown. And then for the Ravens, Josh Johnson played. They didn't really play any of their starters either, but they got the win 16-13. Then the Packers and the Browns, Jordan Love went 2 of 2 for 63 yards and a touchdown, connected on that big throw, long pass to Dontavian Wicks. And that was for 65 yards. So, again, that got to get Packers fans excited when you see that. So, but Sean Clifford played most of the game. He went 10-19 for 111 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. We didn't see Deshaun Watson play for the Browns. You had Jameis Winston, Tyler Huntley, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson play. And they got their lone touchdown. Was from Aiden Robbins. So the Packers won that game 23-10. But for the rookie quarterbacks, Jane Daniels against the Jets, his numbers, he went 2 of 3 for 45 yards. He had a rushing touchdown. So that's something that's really going to help out the Commanders a lot is Jane Daniels' mobility. And you saw that in the game here against the Jets. There was no Aaron Rodgers for the Jets. They had a Tyrod Taylor play, Andrew Peasley, and Adrian Martinez, who they got from the UFL. But, that was my one takeaway from that game is just, Jaden Daniels. He looked good in the limited playing time that he had. He connected with De'Ami Brown for that long pass for 42 yards. So, we'll see. I mean, there are people that are optimistic about the Commanders, and we'll see how they are in 2024. Caleb Williams, of course, highly anticipated debut, went 4 for 7 for 95 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, connected with DJ Moore on a couple of passes. He had a no-look pass to DeAndre Swift that went for 42 yards, a nice throw to Cole Kmet. In his limited playing time, he also looked good as well. And, the Bills, they played their starters. Josh Allen only went 2 of 3 for 22 yards. But I did like what I saw from Caleb Williams. So, again, it's only preseason, but still. Gotta like what you saw there. J.J.McCarthy, who we'll talk about a little later in the show. The Vikings won 24-23. It was funny. I turned the game on, because it was on NFL Network. I turned it on. I was like, oh, okay, J.J. McCarthy's in. And he immediately threw his one interception. But then after I turned it off, from what I saw from the highlights, looked good on some of those throws that he made. But now we don't know how long he's going to be out for. But we'll get into that later in the show. But yeah, he went 11 of 17 for 188 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Sam Darnold went 4 for 8 for 59 yards, and Jaron Hall went 7 to 16 for 63 yards. And then as for the Raiders, you had all 3 quarterbacks play. Gardner Minshew went 6 of 12 for 117 yards and a touchdown. Aiden O'Connell went 7 of 9 for 76 yards. Anthony Brown went 1 for 3 for 24 yards. He was the old Ravens quarterback. Sorry. Trey Tucker was their leading receiver. He had 2 receptions for 73 yards. But yeah, the Vikings won 24-23. the Buccaneers and the Bengals. Joe Burrow did play and, connected with T. Higgins for a touchdown early on in the game, went 5 for 7 for 51 yards. So, looked okay from what I saw. So hopefully the wrist is healthy and, the Bengals have a good year. But there was no Baker Mayfield for the Buccaneers. They didn't really play any of their starters. We saw Kyle Trask. We saw John Walford. So, we're going to see Baker Mayfield at some point. But the Buccaneers actually did get the win, 17-14. We did see a little bit of the starters for both the Jaguars and the Chiefs. The Jaguars winning 26-13. Patrick Mahomes went 3 of 4 for 27 yards. But on the very first play of the game, Marquise Brown ended up getting hurt. So that's a big injury on the offensive side of the ball for the Chiefs. And he's probably going to be out. But he will not get shoulder surgery, which is encouraging. But that's just, that's not what you want. He was their free agent acquisition, and he's going to be a big part of their offense. But now he's going to be out. So but the fact that he's not getting shoulder surgery, that's good to hear at least. And Trevor Lawrence in his playing time, he went 3 for 4 for 42 yards and a touchdown. So he did okay in his playing time. But like I said, the Jaguars won 26-13. The Titans over the 49ers, they won 17-13. Josh Dobbs had a rushing touchdown in the game. Will Levis went 4 for 5 for 35 yards. Tony Pollard had a nice run, a 24-yard run in that game. I saw that. And also Tajay Spears had a touchdown. So, that could be a nice duo, like I said, for them in that backfield. The 49ers really didn't play any of their starters. So, Titans get the win. Seahawks win 16-3 over the Chargers. Sam Howell went 16-27 for 130 yards and a touchdown. He connected with Brady Russell for a touchdown. And the Chargers, they started Max Dugan and Easton Stick and Luis Perez. Justin Herbert could still play in week 1, but, it's just unfortunate that, he ended up getting hurt. And then the Saints and the Cardinals. Saints won 16-14. Derek Carr played a little bit, 2 of 6 for 12 yards. Kyler Murray did not play for the Cardinals. Clayton Tune was their leading passer, 15-24, 163 yards and a touchdown. Michael Carter had a touchdown in this game. Low scoring. So the Saints get the win there. And I thought Marvin Harrison Jr. was going to play in this game, but I guess he ended up not playing. So, and then the game's on Sunday. The Broncos over the Colts 34-30. All quarterbacks played, and I guess Jared Stidham, he probably played the worst out of the three. But Bo Nix finished with 125 yards and a touchdown. Zach Wilson had 117 yards passing, went 10-13. Made some plays in the game, but again, it's preseason. Don't want to go crazy over it. Cortland Sutton had 35 yards receiving in this game. And Anthony Richardson did play a little bit for the Colts. Didn't look great in the limited playing time, but again, it's just a start. So, a lot of people are anticipating he's going to be good this year, which I think he will be. I think the Colts are going to be a team that's going to be in the thick of it throughout the year. So, high-scoring game there, 34-30, Broncos over the Colts. And then the Cowboys and the Rams. So Stetson Bennett played the entire game, went 24-38 for 224 yards. Had 4 interceptions, but he threw the game-winning touchdown. So the Rams get the win there. And, you saw Trey Lance, you saw Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush made a nice throw early on in the game. Trey Lance went 25-41 for 188 yards, and he had 44 yards on the ground. But the Rams get the win. But let me know what you guys think, though, about week 1 of the preseason. What were some of your takeaways from that week? Some of the performances. So we're going to take our first break of the show, though. However, and when we come back, we will talk about the Brandon Aiyuk situation. We'll get into that and the latest update on that front. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about the latest on the Brandon Aiyuk trade discussions. So, Ian Rappaport was reporting that there was a deal in place for Aiyuk and the Steelers, but the 49ers really just had to agree to, sign off on it. And that hasn't happened yet, but there is a deal in place, according to reports. So we got to see if this ends up happening. Now, the 49ers did also offer Aiyuk a long-term extension recently, and that hasn't been accepted. So, again, it's more of the same thing, just playing that waiting game. Is he going to get traded? Is he not going to get traded? I guess maybe this is like the 49ers' last chance. Like, this is their last offer that they're going to give Aiyuk, and if he doesn't accept that, then he's gone. And he's going to Pittsburgh. But who knows? We're still playing that waiting game. And it's just, at this point, I mean, I know I've said this for weeks. We just want this to be over with because, we want to know where he's playing. And we'll talk about Aiyuk a little bit later in the show when I do the wide receiver rankings for the NFC West. But, it's just, we've been playing the waiting game for so long. Like, we just want a final decision to be made. Or, not a final, well, yeah, we just want this to be over. But it hasn't happened yet. Now, the Steelers, if he gets traded to the Steelers, I mean, this helps them out tremendously. It helps out George Pickens. It helps out the playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. It helps out the quarterbacks a lot with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, whoever is going to be the starter in that competition. This will make the Steelers a better team. But for Aiyuk, the best situation for him is with the 49ers. That team has come so close to winning a championship these last couple of years. And you want to jump ship now? But I get it, because he wants that contract. And he deserves to get paid. He's been a productive receiver these last couple of seasons. But the 49ers is probably your best bet. Because they have a chance to do something special. It's just they have gotten so close, yet they've come up short. And he wants to win because the Patriots were willing to offer him whatever it took to acquire him, but he didn't want to go there. because they're in a rebuild. They got a new head coach. They got a young quarterback. And he didn't want to go there. But the Steelers are always competitive. Even when they don't make the playoffs, they just miss out on the playoffs. Mike Tomlin has never finished with a losing record. So, yeah, if you go from the 49ers to the Steelers, yeah, I mean, you still have a chance to win, but it does decrease because the path for the Steelers to get to a Super Bowl is more difficult than the path for the 49ers to get to a Super Bowl. Because the AFC, I mean, I've talked about it so many times with the kind of conference that it is. Because it's loaded. And on top of that, the Steelers, people rank them at the bottom of their division, including myself. Now, that doesn't mean they can't make the playoffs because, you know, we saw 3 out of the 4 teams in that division make the playoffs last year. But it's going to be very difficult for the Steelers to get to a Super Bowl this year because it's just, there's a lot of good teams out there. With the 49ers, yeah, you have, of course, themselves. You have the Eagles. You got the Lions, the Packers, the Cowboys, if you want to throw them in there. I mean, mainly I look at the Eagles, the Lions, and the 49ers. Those are probably the 3 best teams in the NFC. And then you got the Packers at 4. Like I've said, you know, the Eagles and the Packers are at, you know, 3 and 4. And then the Cowboys I still think are, you know, a top 5 team in the conference, but, you know, that's as high as I'll go. But the 49ers I still look at as the best team. Now, if he ends up leaving and goes to the Steelers, well, that impacts them. Because that's a big piece that you're losing. But you still have a ton of weapons on that team. And they still got them. They still got some issues, you know, with Trent Williams because he's looking for a new contract. And you got Christian McCaffrey who's dealing with the calf injury. So yeah, the 49ers do have some issues right now going into the year. And how is that going to impact Brock Purdy? Because if Brock Purdy doesn't perform, if Aiyuk ends up getting traded, well, you know the Brock Purdy naysayers are going to come out and say, see, this is what happens when he loses another piece on offense. He's not as good as his numbers would indicate. So that could be a problem. And Brock Purdy's gonna, you know, get a contract at some point because of his level of productivity these past couple of years. And what the 49ers have been able to accomplish with him in that short period of time. Again, they've just come up short. But he's going to end up getting paid if he keeps playing the way he's been playing. So there's a lot that can change over the next few days. And it's just, you hear so many different reports. The Steelers were out, they're still in, they're out. It's just, you don't know what to believe. But when you have, you know, Ian Rappaport reporting that they got something in place, there needs to be a final decision, we could be moving towards a decision finally being made. And I guess it's really going to come down to if Aiyuk accepts the offer from the Niners, which doesn't seem like that's going to happen, which could mean he ends up getting traded. And he's going to end up on the Steelers. And it's just funny how, early on, you had that whole thing with Mike Tomlin, how they look alike. Mike Tomlin and Brandon Aiyuk, that whole article, the articles that came out on that. And just, Aiyuk maybe might want to be traded. Is it possible he could go to the Steelers? And, of course, that gets shut down. But it would be a real possibility now that he is playing in the black and gold at the start of the season. And he will help out the Steelers a lot. And I know there's been some criticism because, they traded away Deontay Johnson. This deal could have been done sooner because you could have traded Deontay Johnson to the 49ers and they could have gave you Aiyuk because they were looking for a receiver. Now, would they have taken Deontay Johnson? Who knows? But he could have been somebody else that, the Steelers could have flipped to get Aiyuk because they don't want to trade George Pickens and they don't want to trade Pat Freiermuth. But they were willing to trade Deontay Johnson, so it really would have came down to do the 49ers want his services. But you get Aiyuk in there with Pickens, and then, you hope Roman Wilson, heals up from the ankle sprain that he suffered. That's not a bad receiving core. It's not. On top of Pat Freiermuth with the running game and the offensive line, you hope is improved because they really, have tried to fix it. And if you like the quarterback room or not, it's definitely improved from last year, backed up by that very good defense. So, and the Steelers have a brutal second half to their schedule, but they're a good team on paper. They are. And Aiyuk could really help them out. And then for the 49ers, they need guys like Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings to step up. Still got Deebo Samuel, of course. Christian McCaffrey will be ready to go. And you got George Kittle. So, the 49ers still got weapons. It's just losing Aiyuk, though, does hurt. So, let me know what you guys think, though. Do you think this trade will eventually get done between the 49ers and the Steelers? How do you see Aiyuk doing if he does go to the Steelers? Is this a good move for him, or do you think he should stay with the 49ers? But again, this all comes down to him wanting to get paid. And if the Steelers are willing to pay him and they got the deal in place and he wants to go there, then by all means, that's what he's going to do. But in terms of looking at both teams, you'd rather have him stay with the 49ers because they have a better chance of getting to a Super Bowl and winning a championship than the Steelers do. But he does help out the Steelers' championship aspirations a little bit in that loaded conference. So, before we go to break again, just want to remind you guys that for Super Chats, if you want to tip or donate to the show, make sure to go to the chat menu and click the little $ icon in the chat, and that will really help out the show. Your comment will get highlighted. I will make sure to acknowledge it during the live stream, and it's just a great way to interact with me during the show, make the show more lively, more entertaining, because that's what it's really all about, is entertaining you guys and, just making this a better broadcast for everybody all around. So you can do that, as well as still donating to the link. That's still there on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment, which is GSMCpodcast.net. But with the Super Chat, you stay on the show, because with the link, you click on the link and you're off the video and you're going to another source to donate. But if you want to do that with Super Chat, you stay here on the show, and again, just makes the show more entertaining. So we greatly appreciate you guys always tuning in each and every day. So when we come back from our next break, we are going to discuss J.J.McCarthy's injury, the Minnesota Vikings quarterback. So that's what we'll do when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we will talk about now J.J.McCarthy of the Minnesota Vikings and his recent injury. Was dealing with some knee soreness, so got some testing done on it, and it was confirmed that he has a torn meniscus in his knee, which it's not good. We don't know what the extent of, well, we don't know what the timeline of him coming back is. We don't know what that is going to entail. But what that does mean is that he's going to be out, and we are going to see Sam Darnold. Well, I mean, kind of figured we were going to see Sam Darnold anyways. I thought that was really the plan all along, is for Sam Darnold to start, and then they would transition to McCarthy at some point during the year. But now, Sam Darnold's going to be the starter for probably a while. And again, I don't think we have the official timeline of, when he's going to be able to come back. But yeah, this is a huge blow, because this is the guy that the Vikings look at as the franchise quarterback. And, who knows when he's going to come back, if we're going to see him at all this year. Because in terms of his debut, like I said in the first segment, I turned on the game. He threw a pick right away, but then after that, made some pretty good throws. So, again, it's only preseason, but still, this is the right system to be in, I think. He ended up in a good situation with, the playmakers that he would have around him. Again, I got to see how he plays, during the regular season, but now we're not going to be able to see that. And, who knows? Because this could either be, trimming with the meniscus, a simple cleanup, which would take a few weeks, or a full repair of the meniscus, which would take longer. And, yeah, so he sat out Monday's practice due to knee soreness. That led to further tests and the discovery of the meniscus issue. Kevin O'Connell praised McCarthy's perseverance in playing through the injury during the game and expressed disappointment for the rookie's interrupted development. So, yeah, we got to wait and see how long he's going to be out. But Sam Darnold is going to get, some runway to, be the starter. And it's a blow for the Vikings just because, again, you want to be able to evaluate your future. They drafted him with the 10th overall pick. He's going to be, they look at him as the long-term answer at quarterback. And if he sits out for the full year, which, again, you don't know how long he would have sat, because I still thought all along that Sam Darnold was going to start the year, but you didn't know how long he was going to sit for, J.J. McCarthy, when was going to be the right time to be put in. And, the Vikings' schedule to start the year is brutal. So maybe, if Darnold's not playing well, after that stretch, then they would have put in McCarthy. because the Vikings schedule, I of course I did go over it, but when I was going over the schedule previews, but yeah, they do have a brutal start to the year, and of course when I go to pull up their schedule, it does not let me on CBS, so that's nice. Okay, actually, wait, hold on. Of course, my phone does not want to work. That's awesome. But they do open up against the Giants. I know the Packers were on there. The Texans were on there as well. It was just a brutal start to the season. Yeah, so they take on the Giants in week 1, which I will be in attendance for. Then after that, they take on the 49ers in week 2, which is not going to be easy. They take on the Texans. They're at Green Bay. Then the international game with the Jets. Bye week, play against the Lions. At the Rams, you got the Colts. Yeah, I mean, those are tough games. So, it's very likely they could have, 1 or 2 wins. And the Vikings roster is not bad. They got a good team. It's just, of the teams in their division and how their schedule starts out, it's tough. It's going to be tough for them. So, this might not be a good year for them. Now, that doesn't mean like they're going to get blown out by all these teams that they play against, but a lot of those matchups you look at early on. I mean, again, the Giants could be a win, but you got the Packers. I mean, there's divisional games. You got the Packers and the Vikings. You're always going to play your division rivals tough for the most part. You got the Texans, the 49ers. The Vikings did beat the 49ers in Minnesota last year. Let's don't forget about that. That did happen. Now, can it happen again? I don't know, but let's not pretend that didn't happen. So, we do have a comment in the chat. Shots below the belt. He said drafted Jordan Addison before the J.J.McCarthy news on fantasy. Well, listen, I don't think that's something to freak out about. I think even with Sam Darnold throwing him the ball, I think, Addison is still going to be a productive receiver for you. Now, it depends on where you drafted him. Like, if you overdrafted for Addison, well, if he's like your number 1 receiver on your team, well, that's kind of a problem. But I don't think that's something to be too concerned about. Because J.J. McCarthy, I don't think was going to start the year. But, there are some questions, like how is Sam Darnold going to do in this offense? And you also got Justin Jefferson healthy. And if Jefferson's healthy, defenses are going to be focusing in on him more so than Addison. So, I don't think that's something to worry about when it comes to Addison's production in fantasy. Now, in terms of where you would draft Addison, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what his ADP is off the top of my head. But, he's going to be taken. He's not going to be taken in the first 2 rounds. I guess he'd be probably a 3rd or 4th round pick, in my mind. And you also got to remember, look at what Justin Jefferson did that last game of the year with Nick Mullins at quarterback. I think these guys are still going to be able to produce even with, some of the with the quarterback situation that they got going on right now. Because now Nick Mullins is the quarterback too. Now I don't know what the unofficial depth chart was for the Vikings if they had J.J. McCarthy. I think they had. Did they have McCarthy listed as the 3rd quarterback? I'm not really sure, but now Nick Mullins is the number 2 guy, I would imagine. But now that I think about it, Nick Mullins didn't even play. It was Jaren Hall that played in the preseason game. So I don't know. But we know that Sam Darnold is a QB1. So keep knocking over my mic here. Yeah, I wouldn't really worry about the McCarthy injury when it comes to Addison's fantasy production. But this is, again, it's just it's a blow to their team. because, if he's out for an extended period of time, you might not really see him this year. If, like I said, if it's a, cleanup, a trimming, I think that's what they were calling it, of the meniscus, then he could be back sooner. But it's just unfortunate. And he's one of those guys that's going to be, that was being put under a microscope just because of where he was coming from Michigan, and, the criticism that he has gotten, in the national championship game, just handing the ball off and, not really throwing it as much. Michigan was, a run-first team. And, how is his play style going to translate to the NFL? I mean, he's got a big arm. We saw that in some of the throws that he made. He's in a good situation. So, if he's able to come back, even when he's not healthy, he could just sit and just, take in all the knowledge from the other quarterbacks on the team. And, when he's ready to go, we'll see what he could do. But, at least, in his debut, it was a mixed bag a little bit because the interception was bad. But you know what? That's going to happen. It's going to happen to all the young quarterbacks that we see. We saw, some of the other guys, and they had good debuts. But you know what? They're going to have their moments where they don't, put up good numbers and they make mistakes. But that all comes with, transitioning to the NFL. And, we'll see who separates themselves from the pack, who's able to adjust faster. And we'll see who, just doesn't have it in general. Some we might not see right off the bat. Like, we know Michael Penix is going to be sitting for a bit if Kirk Cousins stays healthy. But we know we're going to see Caleb Williams right off the bat. We know we're going to see Jaden Daniels right off the bat. So, and I feel like for the most part, you got to like what you saw from pretty much all the young quarterbacks. I mean, Drake May really didn't get to see a lot of him. But we did see a decent amount of J.J.McCarthy. We did see, Caleb Williams make some plays in his debut. Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix. They all made plays. Pretty much. So, not a bad weekend for them until, we saw or we heard the news of the injury to J.J. McCarthy. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about the injury for McCarthy. Again, it's just unfortunate because, again, he had it was a little bit of a mixed bag, but, the good outweighed the bad, in my opinion, from what I saw. So, let me know what you guys think, though, in the comments. So, we are going to take our next break. And when we come back, we will discuss Haason Reddick of the Jets requesting a trade and the Jets, their response to that. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about Haason Reddick of the New York Jets requesting a trade and the Jets' response to it. So, Haason Reddick was brought in, got him from the Eagles. They traded with the Eagles to get him. And the Jets have really kind of, messed up this whole situation because now he wants to be traded. And I don't think we've ever seen this where you have a guy that is traded and now he wants to be now he requests a trade from the team that traded for him to go somewhere else because he wants his contract as well. I know we talked about Brandon Aiyuk and his contract, but now Haason Reddick is looking for that contract, and he requested a trade from the Jets because they just have not been able to come to an agreement on a new contract. But the Jets have refused to trade Reddick, stating he's expected to report to camp and will be fined if he does not comply. Reddick has held out of training camp since it began. He's been dissatisfied with his current contract, which is set to pay him, a little over $14 million in the final year. Reddick was acquired from the Eagles in exchange for a conditional 2026 third-round pick, as the Eagles, were trying to move him because, he wanted a new contract. And the Jets were looked at as the team that was going to give him that contract when they traded for him, but it just has not happened. And, they looking at him as the replacement to Bryce Huff, who left in free agency to go play for the Eagles. And it just hasn't been good. And, the longer he holds out, he's going to be getting fined. But it's just a mess. And, the Jets look a little ridiculous right now because they traded for him, and now all this is happening. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't come to an agreement and this all gets squared away and we move forward with that. But it's just another thing that has the Jets in the news for the wrong reasons. And, look, you guys know me, and I have been optimistic about the Jets, and I feel like if everything goes right for them this year, they could do some special things with the talent that they have on this team. They really can. But it's hard when you got things like this that come up and you're just like, well, that's another distraction. And it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate that this stuff has to happen. But we'll have to wait and see how it goes. But, even if Haason Reddick is out, if they end up moving off of him after getting him, is it the worst thing in the world? No. Because the Jets still have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball with with Quincy and Quinnen Williams. You got Sauce Gardner. They still have guys on this defense. But they brought in Haason Reddick to be a difference maker. And now who knows what's going to happen. But like I said, it's just another thing that keeps the Jets in the news for the wrong reasons. But they feel like they're going to be able to get this done and they can move forward. But only time will tell. Only time will tell. It's just, you just want this to get to a resolution. And it's not now. This situation with Haason Reddick is not as popular as the Brandon Aiyuk stuff. But, this Haason Reddick situation has been going on for a while, too. And I think the Jets thought that this was going to be handled a lot sooner, but it just hasn't. And they look silly right now. So, we're we're less than a month away from the season starting. We're going into week 2 of the preseason. The season is slowly but surely approaching. It's getting real now. And they play on September 9th, the Jets. That'll be against the 49ers. So, I just talked about Brandon Aiyuk, but, are we going to see both of those guys on the field? Because we will, if they both stay with these teams that they're on right now currently. Aiyuk staying with the Niners, Reddick staying with the Jets. We'll see them on the field at the same time together. But right now, it looks like we're not going to see either of them on the field together for that September 9th game. But it's just the latest headline for the Jets that, you know. Now, they play it off, but how do they feel behind closed doors? We'll never see that. But they want to get this done. And we still got some time before the season starts, but we are rapidly approaching to the start of the season. And, you know, now he's requesting a trade. But the Jets are, you know, they said they're not trading him. But, you know, now I bring back the 49ers and Aiyuk. Well, the 49ers said they're not trading Brandon Aiyuk, but, you know, supposedly we got a deal in place with the Steelers, so he could be traded. So, like I said, though, even if they don't reach an agreement with Haason Reddick and he ends up being traded, I mean, the Jets' defense is still very good. So I don't think this is going to be... But now you lost Haason Reddick's, or you lost Bryce Huff's replacement. So, but, you know, looking down the line, you know, Jermaine Johnson, who they drafted a couple years ago, you know, they're looking for him to take that next step. You got the Williams brothers, Quincy Williams and Quinnen Williams, you know, and then, of course, you got Sauce Gardner, like I said, in the secondary. This defense still has a ton of talent. But, you know, losing Haason Reddick, that can hurt. That might hurt a little bit. So I'm not really worried about the Jets defense that much if they lose him, but, you know, that was supposed to be the replacement. So, you know, we'll just have to keep an eye on it. But, you know, just more news that the Jets are making that's just not what you want to hear. But like I said, I still kind of remain optimistic with the Jets throughout this whole offseason. You know, from even with Aaron Rodgers, you know, missing training camp and, you know, now the Reddick stuff. I just think this team has too much talent. That if, you know, even if they're healthy, like they should be good. But they do have ifs. And there's still some questions that I have. You know, I want to see how this offensive line plays. You know, how does Aaron Rodgers hold up coming back from his injury and now him being 40? You know, how is that all going to be? Now, if Rodgers is healthy and, you know, the offensive line protects him, this team's going to be good. But, you know, if he's getting bull rushed on every play, it's not going to work. Now, I'm hoping that we get one more solid year out of him. Because, I've said it all along. I don't want him to go out like he did last year. I want him to go out there, have a productive season, and, you know, maybe the Jets go on a run. And, you know, maybe he goes out in a shootout against Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But I want to see him go out on a higher note. I don't want to see him go out like he did last year. Because this is one of the greatest quarterbacks that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Probably the greatest quarterback I've ever seen in my lifetime. Just in terms of pure talent. Because I know there's other quarterbacks that have accomplished more. I get it. You know, because I've grown up to be a fan of his for a long time. And, you know, it's just another guy that's on his way to, you know, being out. Another quarterback from the 2010s, you know, on his way out soon, and it's unfortunate, and it's just sad. So, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's just I just want to see how he does with the Jets. Can we see that? Can we see a little bit of it? We did see a little bit of it with the preseason game against the Giants last year, but I want to see him play a full game, be able to play a full season, so we could be like, all right, was this worth it or not for the Jets? Because right now, people are going to say, yeah, this wasn't worth it. Now, if it doesn't pan out this year, yeah, it's definitely not going to be worth it. But, at the time that they made that trade, he was. I know the last year in Green Bay was a down year, but the previous year, previous 2 years, he went back-to-back MVPs. So you do that. It's just we did not expect him to get hurt 4 plays into the season. Just did not expect that. But that's what happened. So, but yeah, but he seems to be all the way back from the injury, which is good. Now the Jets got to focus on Hassan Reddick and getting this under control. So, yeah, we will see. We'll see how it goes. If they can get this done, the Jets said they're not going to trade him. But only time will tell. Only time will tell. But yeah, let me know what you guys think though about the Hassan Reddick situation. Do you think that he is going to get traded again? Because they would look even more ridiculous if they ended up trading him. But yeah, let me know if you think he's going to get traded again or not. Let me know in the comments if you believe that or not. So, yeah, we're going to take our final break of the show now. And then when we come back, I will do my wide receiver rankings for the teams in the NFC West. And again, I do want to emphasize that this is the wide receivers as a whole, as a group, not as individual wide receivers. Because I think that's kind of been getting a little... I think some people have been getting a little confused by that. So, I know there's been some comments. I know on one of my shorts, I got a comment, and I'm like, well, I'm talking about the groups, but it just seems like that's getting lost in translation. And I'll explain more of that when when we come back from break. But it's just, that is I know that's I've gotten comments about that, so I just wanted to bring that up. So, but yeah, when we come back from our final break of the show, we will get into ranking the wide receivers in the NFC West, wide receiver groups. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to rank the wide receiver groups for the teams in the NFC West. And this is a division that is loaded with wide receivers. And it was very difficult to rank, as it typically has been with these rankings. It was pretty difficult to rank it because, you can make the case for 3 of the 4 teams. Really, 3 of the 4 could take the number 1 spot. But I had to make a decision. But I know for 4, unfortunately, I had to put the Arizona Cardinals. Now, this is a team that has a young receiving core going into the season. Your top 2 wide receivers are Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson. I know from listening to a little bit of the Cardinals broadcast, they were talking up Michael Wilson. I believe they were talking to Michael Wilson, and that he looks a lot better going into this year. So that's encouraging. And Marvin Harrison Jr. the Cardinals took with their first selection in this past NFL draft, and they're looking at him as being the guy, being that number 1 guy for Kyler Murray. So I'm excited to see what they can accomplish together this year. But yeah, I kind of have them, comparing it to the other groups in this division. I kind of put the Cardinals at 4. But the Cardinals, they could be, an interesting team this year. If Kyler stays healthy. You also have Zay Jones that they brought in. I know Greg Deutsch. He's made plays for them in the past, but I mean, you really look at Marvin Harrison Jr. He's the headliner for this team, and we'll see what him and Kyler could do together. Can it be more of what we saw with Kyler and DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, that's what I think the Cardinals are hoping for. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he could do his first season in the NFL with a healthy Kyler Murray. But yeah, I got to put the Cardinals at 4. So then at 3, I do have the Seattle Seahawks. And I like this receiving core with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and then you got Jackson Smith and Jigba going into his second season. This has been a nice duo that the Seahawks have had with Lockett and Metcalf for a number of years now. And obviously, things have changed with, Geno Smith being the starter the last couple of years, taking over for Russell Wilson. But yeah, right now you got Metcalf, Lockett, and Smith and Jigba. Those are your top 3 receivers. And last year, Metcalf had 1,100 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns. He did have 3 in the game against the Cowboys later in the season. But yeah, had another solid year. Tyler Lockett had 894 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. And then Smith and Jigba in his rookie season, they're showing his preseason stats. I wanted to see his stats from last year. Yeah, so he had 628 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. So, the receiving core for the Seahawks is solid. And like I said, you could really make the argument, in my opinion, you could put the remaining 3 teams, you really could change them all up and put, you could make the argument you could put the Seahawks receiving core at 1 because they've been so productive. But right now I got them at 3. And we'll see how the quarterback situation plays out throughout the year. Because, Geno Smith is going to be the starter. But, could it be possible that, Sam Howell, gets a chance? I know Geno's been banged up a little bit in camp, but, I'm curious to see how the quarterback situation plays out throughout the year. But, yeah, I mean, the 2 guys I have up on the screen right now, they're both productive receivers, and I expect them to be productive again this year. And then 2 and 1 were tough. I was going back and forth, but I did end up now. The number 1 spot, it could very well change depending on if a certain somebody gets traded. But as of right now, I put the Rams at 2. And they're banking on, I think, Cooper Kupp coming back healthy. Because last year, missed some time. Still finished with over 700 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns. But Puka Nacua was unbelievable last year. Almost 1,500 yards receiving and 6 touchdowns. No, he's a little banged up right now to start the year. He dealing with his knee injury. But it doesn't seem like that's something that's going to keep him out long term. But if they got a healthy Cooper Kupp going into this year, playing in every single game pretty much this year, these two guys are going to put up big numbers together. And, you saw towards the end of the year, because once Cooper Kupp was healthy and Kyron Williams was healthy, this Rams offense completely changed. And you also had Demarcus Robinson, who looked good at certain points during the year last year. This receiving core, is solid for the Rams. And, if you got these two guys here healthy, they're going to put up some big numbers. Also, I did forget to mention in the preseason game this past weekend, Jordan Whittington was making some plays for them in that game. So, maybe that's somebody to keep an eye on, if he continues to do that. As well as Tutu Atwell. Forgot about him last year. He had that touchdown in the playoff game against the Lions. This receiving core, with the top two guys, those two guys are going to put up big numbers. Like I said, if they're both healthy, I still think Cooper Kupp, if he's healthy, I know he's getting older, but he's still got. I think he's still got some good years left in him. And Puka, he's got his whole career ahead of him. So. But yeah, I got them at 2. And you got Matthew Stafford throwing you the football as well. And if he's healthy, like I said, these guys are going to put up big numbers with him. And then at the number 1 spot, as of right now, I got Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk. I got Ayuk's numbers. He had a solid year, of course. And, we're waiting on if he ends up getting traded. Because now if he gets traded, well, the 49ers get bumped down a little bit. Because then you got, Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall, taking on more of a role in the offense. But Deebo Samuel last year had 892 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns. Missed some time. And, when he was hurt, the 49ers offense did, take a step back a little bit. Him and Trent Williams. And he also had 3 rushing touchdowns last year as well. But with these two guys, if they're both playing for the Niners, I think right now this is the best receiving core of the teams in the division. But it could very well change if Aiyuk does end up getting traded, because like I said, then they get bumped down a little bit. But this division though is absolutely loaded with receivers. And that's why it was very hard, because I was going back and forth with the Rams and the Niners last night, and then I said, you know what, I'm just going to keep the Niners at 1. But it's tough. It's tough, ranking these teams here, because it's really close. So, but that's what I got right here. So to kind of go through it again. Got the Cardinals at 4, Seahawks receiving core at 3, the Rams at 2, and the Niners at 1, which is subject to change if Aiyuk does end up getting traded. Because if he ends up getting traded, then the Niners are not number 1 anymore. Definitely not number 1. So let me know what you guys think about those rankings. How would you rank the teams within this division? Let me know in the comments. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Week 2 of the preseason is upon us, so I know I will, preview some of the games, as well as I'll also, talk about episode 2 of Hard Knocks with the Bears. I didn't get a chance to do that. I didn't get a chance to watch it with things going on, but I will make sure to take a look at it and give you my thoughts on it. But yeah, another week of football is upon us. the college football season is getting close. It's actually next week. So this is exciting stuff, right? It is next week, I believe. So yeah, I'm excited. We got football back, and then we go from there. But hopefully we get to a resolution with, the Brandon Aiyuk stuff and the Hassan Reddick stuff as well. Just so we, like I said, just so we get to a resolution, because this has been going on for so long, and we just want these situations to be over with. But the Aiyuk situation looks like we're getting to a resolution, because it's either he's going to be traded or maybe he accepts the deal that the 49ers offer him. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Make sure to check out all the other shows, like I always say. And of course, we appreciate your guys' viewership, day in and day out. That helps us as a network. Also, appreciate the comments, the fantasy comments today. That was nice during the show. I know I got my drafts coming up in the coming weeks, and spread pools, all that. It's going to be a lot of fun when that all comes around. So yeah, with that is all the time that we have for today. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.